The morning my boss called that meeting with no subject line, I knew my career was about to implode. Not fired, that would have been merciful. Instead, I watched him hand my entire retention system to a 20-something who thought pivot tables were revolutionary. 3 months later, I'd let him crash our churn metrics so spectacularly that the entire C-suite watched his lies unravel in real time. And I had every receipt to prove it. My name is Elena Harper, and for 6 years, I'd been the architect of Brightscale Solutions' retention strategy. Every algorithm, every predictive model, every early warning system that kept our churn rate below industry standard, I built them from scratch. So when Marcus Lang's meeting invite popped up that Tuesday morning, blank subject line staring back at me like an accusation, my stomach knew what my brain refused to accept. The walk to conference room 7B felt longer than usual. Marcus sat there, immaculate in his tailored navy suit, that practiced executive smile already in place. Next to him sat Tyler Briggs, our newest strategic acquisition from some failed startup. 26 years old, armed with an MBA and the kind of confidence that only comes from never having failed catastrophically. "Elena, thanks for coming," Marcus began, his voice carrying that synthetic warmth executives perfect in leadership seminars. "We're restructuring the retention analytics function, restructuring, corporate speak for you're about to get screwed. Tyler here has some fresh perspectives on modernizing our approach," Marcus continued, gesturing toward the kid who probably couldn't explain the difference between gross and net churn if his trust fund depended on it. "Effective immediately, he'll be taking ownership of the churn prevention systems." The fluorescent lights hummed above us. I counted 3 seconds of silence before responding. "The systems I built?" "The company's systems," Marcus corrected, his smile tightening just enough to show teeth. "You've done excellent work, Elena. Really excellent, which is why we have an exciting new opportunity for you." Exciting opportunity. Translation: we're burying you in corporate Siberia. We need someone with your attention to detail to spearhead our new employee engagement initiative. He slid a folder across the table. I didn't touch it. Team building exercises, culture surveys, that sort of thing. I looked at Tyler, who had the decency to avoid eye contact, studying his phone like it contained the meaning of life. His Stanford class ring caught the light? Of course it did. "Just to clarify," I said, my voice steady as surgical steel. "You're removing me from the analytics I've spent 6 years perfecting to plan pizza parties?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "It's a lateral move. Same salary, same benefits. Same salary for kindergarten work while this overpaid intern played with my life's work." I wanted to laugh, or scream. Instead, I did something more dangerous. I smiled. "I'll need a transition period," I said, "to properly hand over the documentation. Tyler's a quick learner," Marcus assured me. 1 week should be sufficient. 1 week to watch 6 years of intricate work get handed to someone who probably thought VLOOKUPs were advanced Excel. But I nodded, gathered the untouched folder, and stood. "Elena," Marcus called as I reached the door. "I know this is an adjustment, but Tyler brings a fresh perspective. Sometimes we need to disrupt our own thinking. Disrupt, another word for destroy what works to justify my executive bonus." I turned back, meeting his gaze directly. "Absolutely. I'm sure Tyler's perspective will be very educational for everyone." The walk back to my desk was a blur. My team, former team, looked up as I passed, their expressions ranging from confusion to concern. They'd know soon enough. Corporate restructuring traveled faster than light through office gossip channels. I sat down, opened my laptop, and stared at the dashboard I'd spent 2 years perfecting. Real-time churn indicators, predictive modeling that caught at-risk accounts 3 months out, automated intervention triggers that had saved millions in recurring revenue, all about to be handed to someone who probably couldn't spell regression analysis without autocorrect. But as I looked at Tyler's LinkedIn profile, thought leader, disruption catalyst, Stanford MBA, a different feeling settled in. Not anger, not even disappointment. Something colder, more calculated. They wanted to hand my precision-engineered system to an amateur? Fine. But I'd learned long ago that the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with documentation. I created a new folder on my personal drive. Named it simply Echo. Then I began to copy everything. The transition week was a masterclass in watching competence die by PowerPoint. Tyler showed up to our first handover meeting with a presentation titled Retention Revolution, Thinking Outside the Dashboard. 23 slides of gradient backgrounds and meaningless buzzwords, synergy, paradigm shift, customer journey optimization. Each term another nail in the coffin of actual analytics. So these prediction models, Tyler said, squinting at my documentation like it was written in Sanskrit. They seem a bit complex. Can we simplify? Simplify. He meant gut. The complexity serves a purpose, I explained, maintaining the patient tone reserved for explaining why you can't put metal in a microwave. Each variable captures specific behavioral patterns, remove one, and you blind yourself to an entire category of churn risk. He nodded enthusiastically, typing notes on his iPad. I caught a glimpse of his screen. He was ordering lunch. By day 3, Tyler had already started his improvements. My carefully calibrated dashboard, which displayed 7 critical metrics in real time, had been replaced with what looked like a kindergarten art project. Pie charts in neon colors, bar graphs that compared nothing to nothing. And centerpiece to this disaster, a single, massive number showing retention score, a metric he'd invented that somehow combined customer satisfaction, login frequency, and payment history into one meaningless percentage. It's about democratizing data, he explained to Marcus during a check-in, both of them admiring his handiwork on the conference room screen. Elena's system was brilliant, but too technical. This makes retention accessible to everyone. Accessible. Like making surgery accessible by replacing scalpels with butter knives. I sat in the corner, taking notes. Not the kind they thought. I was screenshotting every bastardization of my work. Every formula he'd simplified into uselessness. Every critical alert he'd disabled because they were too noisy. My Echo folder grew fat with evidence. The real artistry came Friday afternoon. Tyler had called a team meeting to unveil his streamlined reporting structure. My former team sat around the table, their expressions carefully neutral as he walked them through the new process. Instead of daily risk assessments, we'll do weekly pulse checks, he announced. And rather than tracking 17 different churn indicators, we'll focus on the 3 that really matter. Which 3? Asked Darren from accounting, his skepticism barely concealed. Tyler clicked to his next slide. Payment delays, support tickets, and user sentiment. I watched my team exchange glances. Sarah, my former senior analyst, cleared her throat. What about usage patterns, feature adoption rates, competitive migrations? Those are lagging indicators. Tyler dismissed with a wave. We want to be proactive, not reactive. The irony of calling predictive metrics lagging indicators while relying on payment delays, literally the last thing before cancellation, wasn't lost on anyone. Except, apparently, Tyler. After the meeting, I returned to my new desk in the basement, the Employee Experience Hub, and pulled up the real numbers. While Tyler was painting his rainbow dashboards, I ran a parallel analysis using my original models. The results were terrifying. We had 43 enterprise accounts showing critical risk signals. Tyler's system had flagged exactly 2. I documented everything, screenshots with timestamps, the original risk assessments versus Tyler's simplified versions, the Git commits showing every line of code he'd deleted because it was redundant. Each piece of evidence carefully cataloged, named, and backed up in 3 locations. But the masterpiece was an email chain I'd discovered while doing my final handover. Tyler had been corresponding with Marcus for weeks before my restructuring. The subject line, Modernization Opportunity, Retention Analytics. In it, Tyler pitched himself as the solution to what he called Elena's over-engineered approach. Marcus's response was particularly illuminating. Love the vision. Let's discuss how to position the transition. They'd planned this for months. I was just the acceptable casualty in Tyler's career advancement story. That weekend, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by printouts and analysis. My phone buzzed with messages from former teammates. The new system missed Johnson Corp's renewal flag. Tyler just told sales that churn is down 30%. That can't be right. Elena, what the hell is happening? What was happening was entropy. The careful system I'd built was being dismantled by someone who thought Excel certifications were advanced degrees. But I didn't respond to the messages. Not yet. Instead, I opened a new spreadsheet, named it Ignored Warnings Q3. The first entry. Week 1, 41 enterprise accounts showing critical risk signals, Tyler's system flags. 2. Estimated revenue at risk, 3.2 NPARS quarterly. Let him have his rainbow dashboards. I'd keep the receipts. 3 weeks into Tyler's retention revolution. The cracks weren't just showing, they were spreading like cancer through marble. But you had to know where to look. And Tyler was too busy basking in Marcus's approval to notice the foundation crumbling beneath his designer shoes. The October board meeting was his first real performance. Tyler strutted into the executive conference room with a deck titled Churn Down 15%, a new era of customer retention. The number was so absurd I actually laughed. Alone in my basement office, watching the live stream meant for remote employees. His secret was elegant in its stupidity. He'd simply changed the definition of churned customer. Previously, my system flagged any account that hadn't renewed within 30 days of contract expiration. Tyler's innovation: extend that window to 90 days. Suddenly, customers who'd already signed with our competitors were still considered pending renewal in his metrics. On paper, churn had plummeted. In reality, we were hemorrhaging clients while Tyler took victory laps. I pulled up the real data. Morrison Industries, gone to a competitor 6 weeks ago, but still showing as active in Tyler's dashboard. Vertex Solutions canceled all services last month, yet somehow contributing to our improved retention rate. DataSync Corp literally sent us a termination letter I'd personally seen CC'd to legal. But in Tyler's fantasy world, they were just exploring options. The actual churn rate, 27%. We were losing more than a quarter of our enterprise base, and nobody upstairs knew because the truth was buried under Tyler's creative accounting. I started my documentation ritual: screenshot, timestamp, save to Echo folder, cross-reference with the original termination notices, build the paper trail. But this time, I added a new element. I started BCCing myself on every client communication that mentioned dissatisfaction with our new streamlined approach. The complaints were beautiful in their consistency. The predictive alerts stopped working. We used to get warned about usage drops. Now we find out when users have already left. Your team seems to have lost visibility into our account health. Julia from legal was the first to smell blood in the water. She appeared at my basement desk on a Thursday afternoon, holding a contract folder like it might explode. Elena, she said, glancing around the empty employee experience hub with barely concealed disgust. I need to ask you something off the record. I gestured to a chair. Pizza party planning can wait. She didn't smile. We just lost the Brennan Group, $8 million annually. But according to the retention dashboard, they're showing green across all metrics. Interesting, I said, my voice neutral as Switzerland. The thing is, Julia continued, lowering her voice, they cited specific issues in their termination. Issues that your old system would have caught months ago. Issues that should have triggered our contractual service level guarantees. I pulled up Tyler's dashboard on my screen. The Brennan Group glowed a healthy green. Their retention score, a robust 94%. When did they notify us? I asked. 6 weeks ago, 6. But Tyler's report last week still showed them as a success story. I turned my screen so Julia could see it better, said nothing. Let her draw her own conclusions. This is fraud, she whispered. This is disruption. I corrected, my tone dripping with just enough irony that she caught it. Julia left, but not before taking photos of the dashboard with her phone. The next visitor was Darren from accounting, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. The numbers don't add up, he said without preamble. Tyler's reporting 15% churn reduction, but revenue is down 8% quarter over quarter. That's mathematically impossible unless the reporting is wrong. I finished. He stared at me. You knew. I pulled up a spreadsheet. My real numbers. Morrison, Vertex, DataSync, Brennan, Clearwater, Synth Industries, all gone. All still showing as active in Tyler's system. Jesus Christ, that's 43 million in ARR. 47 million, I corrected. You missed the Pearson account. They left yesterday. Darren's face went pale. The board thinks we're having our best quarter ever. Perception is reality, I said, echoing one of Tyler's favorite phrases. Until reality comes to collect. That night, I compiled everything into a single document. The ghost portfolio, an analysis of phantom retention metrics. 40 pages of data, screenshots, email chains, and timeline comparisons. Every lie Tyler had told, supported by his own reports. Every client we'd lost while he claimed victory. Documented with termination notices. But I didn't send it. Not yet. Because Tyler was about to make his biggest mistake, and I wanted to make sure everyone was watching when he did. The quarterly business review was in 2 weeks. Mandatory attendance for all staff, CEO, board members, major investors. Everyone who mattered would be in that room. Tyler had already sent a company-wide email promising exciting news about our revolutionary retention improvements. I marked my calendar. Added a small note. Bring popcorn. The Echo folder now contained 3 months of evidence. Every buried report, every manipulated metric, every warning ignored. The beautiful thing about numbers is they don't lie, even when everyone else does. Tyler thought he'd revolutionized retention. In reality, he'd built a house of cards in a hurricane, and I had documented every single gust of wind. The unraveling started with whispers, the kind that spread through corporate corridors like smoke under doors. Darren couldn't keep his mouth shut. Accountants never can when numbers don't reconcile. Julia started asking clarifying questions in meetings that weren't really questions at all. And Maya from Customer Success began forwarding me emails with subject lines like, FYI, and thought you should see this. I never responded directly. Instead, I became a ghost that haunted data. Maya's situation was particularly damning. As head of customer success, she needed to know why clients were leaving to prevent future churn. But Tyler's system had removed the exit interview requirements and post-cancellation analysis. We're flying blind, she told me during an impromptu coffee run. Her frustration barely contained. Yesterday, 3 clients mentioned they'd been flagging issues for months. Issues that never appeared in any reports. Which clients? I asked, already knowing the answer. Meridian Tech, Apex Systems, and that pharmaceutical company, Genway. Combined annual value, $12 million. All showing green in Tyler's dashboard as of this morning. The thing is, Maya continued, stirring her coffee with unnecessary violence. I found their complaints in our old ticketing system, the one your models used to monitor. 17 tickets between them, all critical, all unresolved. I pulled out my phone, showed her a screenshot from 2 months ago. My original system had flagged all 3 as critical risk, immediate intervention required. You've been tracking this, she said. It wasn't a question. I've been documenting, I corrected. Maya was quiet for a moment, then. Darren said revenue projections for next quarter are catastrophic. Like, emergency board meeting catastrophic. When? 2 days before the QBR. Perfect timing. The board would be primed with fear, walking into Tyler's presentation with questions he couldn't answer. Unless, of course, someone provided those answers first. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I logged into our production database using my old admin credentials. Tyler, in his eagerness to simplify, had never revoked them. Oversight or arrogance, I didn't care. What I found was worse than my projections. He hadn't just changed the churn window to 90 days. He'd been manually adjusting individual account statuses, terminated contracts marked as under review, canceled subscriptions labeled as payment pending, dead accounts resurrected as re-engagement opportunities. It wasn't just incompetence anymore, it was deliberate falsification. I took screenshots of everything. The audit logs showing Tyler's user ID making manual adjustments, the timestamp disparities between termination notices and status changes, the back-end database entries that contradicted every single one of his reports. But the crown jewel came from an unexpected source, Brad from IT. "Hey, Elena," his email read. "Noticed something weird in the system logs. Tyler's been running delete queries on the retention Zec history table. Thought you should know, since you built that table. B. Delete queries. He was erasing historical data to prevent comparison with current numbers. I called Brad immediately. Can you recover the deleted records? Already did, he said. Made a backup before reaching out. Want to guess what he deleted? The Q2 baseline metrics. Bingo. Also, Elena, he tried to access your personal drive last week. The Echo folder got denied, obviously, but thought you should know. So Tyler knew I was onto him. That explained the sudden meeting invitation from Marcus that appeared in my calendar. Strategic alignment discussion, confidential. I declined it, sent a simple response. Preparing important documentation for QBR. Happy to meet after. The rebels were organizing without any coordination from me. Darren started a private Slack channel called Budget Reality Check. Julia began compiling a risk assessment that had nothing to do with legal and everything to do with Tyler's numbers. Maya created her own shadow reports tracking actual customer feedback versus reported satisfaction scores. They didn't know about each other's efforts. They didn't know about my Echo folder. But they all sensed the same thing. We were standing on a cliff edge, and Tyler was still dancing. 3 days before the QBR, I received an unexpected visitor, James Morrison, CEO of Morrison Industries, one of our lost clients that Tyler still claimed as active. Elena, he said, finding me in the basement. I heard you got moved to employee experience? Disruption requires sacrifice, I said with a smile that could cut glass. He didn't smile back. We left because the service went to hell. No warnings about usage drops. No predictive insights. Nothing that made Brightscale worth the premium price. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be sorry. Be available. When this house of cards falls, and it will, we'd love to have you build something for us directly. He left his card. I added it to my collection, right next to similar offers from Vertex and DataSync. The allies were gathering. The evidence was mounted. The stage was set. Tyler had no idea that his revolutionary presentation would be performing to an audience that already knew the ending. They just didn't know they knew it yet. I opened my Echo folder one more time. 87 files, 6 gigabytes of evidence, 3 months of lies documented in excruciating detail. Time to prepare the final package. The Monday before the QBR. I submitted a simple request to IT. Need production database access for historical employee engagement analysis. Brad approved it in 30 seconds with a winking emoji. We both knew employee engagement was the last thing I was analyzing. What followed was 16 hours of surgical precision. First, I rebuilt my original retention model in a sandboxed environment, feeding it 3 months of raw data, the real data, before Tyler's manipulations. The model churned through customer behaviors, support tickets, usage patterns, feature adoption rates, payment histories, and a dozen other variables Tyler had deemed unnecessarily complex. The output was a thing of terrible beauty, a parallel universe where truth still mattered. Real churn rate, 31%, not the 15% reduction Tyler claimed, but a 16% increase from baseline. We weren't just losing customers, we were hemorrhaging them at a rate that would make us insolvent within 2 quarters. But I needed more than numbers. I needed a story that even the most financially illiterate board member could understand. So I created the tale of two dashboards. Side by side, timestamp by timestamp. I documented every divergence between reality and Tyler's fiction. When Morrison Industries submitted their termination notice on September 3rd, Tyler's dashboard showed them upgrading their package on September 5th. When Vertex Solutions usage dropped to 0 on September 15th, Tyler reported a successful re-engagement on September 20th. For every lie, I had the receipt. The presentation ran 43 slides, clean, minimal text, devastating data. Each slide titled with Tyler's own quotes from his emails to Marcus. Revolutionizing retention through simplification. Making data accessible to everyone. Driving unprecedented growth through modern analytics. Under each quote, the reality. Red arrows pointing down. Customer logos with termination dates. Revenue charts that looked like cliff edges. But I wasn't done. Wednesday morning, I sent a calendar invitation to a carefully selected group: Darren, Julia, Maya, Brad, and Sarah from my old team. Subject: Pre-QBR data alignment. Location: Conference Room B3, the forgotten fishbowl in the basement that nobody ever booked. They arrived confused but curious. "I'm going to show you something," I said, projecting my laptop screen. "And then you're going to decide what to do with it." For 30 minutes, I walked them through everything: the real numbers, the deleted data, the manual manipulations, the audit logs showing Tyler's digital fingerprints on every falsified record. The room was silent except for Julia's periodic "holy shit" and Darren's calculator clicking as he computed the actual financial impact. $73 million, he finally said. "We've lost $73 million in annual recurring revenue, while Tyler's been reporting growth. It's securities fraud if we report these numbers to investors," Julia added, her legal mind already racing. "The SEC would—" "I'm not asking you to do anything," I interrupted. "I'm just sharing information. What you do with it is your choice." Maya was the first to understand. "You're going to let him present those numbers to the board." I said nothing. "Elena," Sarah spoke up, "he'll destroy the company's credibility. Marcus will—" "Marcus signed off on every one of Tyler's reports," I said quietly. "His signature is on all the board communications. He's either complicit or incompetent. Either way." I let them fill in the blank. Brad was typing furiously on his laptop. "I'm creating a backup of all production data as of right now, time-stamped, encrypted, stored off-site. If anyone tries to retroactively change anything after the QBR, we'll have proof." Julia finished. I closed my laptop. "The QBR is in 36 hours. Tyler's presenting at 2 p.m. I suggest you all have your documentation ready by 3 p.m. "Why 3 p.m.? Darren asked. "Because that's when the emergency session will start." They looked at me, understanding dawning. "You've already sent something to someone," Maya said. I stood to leave. "I've been moved to employee experience, remember? I have a team-building workshop to plan. Something about trust exercises. Very important for corporate culture." As I reached the door, Julia called out, "Elena, why didn't you report this earlier?" I turned back. "Report it to whom?" "Marcus. Who orchestrated it? The board? Who praised Tyler's innovation every month? HR? Who signed off on my lateral move?" I smiled. The kind that probably looked more like a predator than a person. Sometimes the only way to kill a lie is to let it grow so big that everyone can see it for what it is. And then make sure they're all watching when it collapses. Thursday night, I ran my model one more time with fresh data. The churn had accelerated. We'd lost 2 more enterprise clients that day alone. Tyler's dashboard showed both as successfully renewed. I updated my presentation. 45 slides now. Then I did something I'd been avoiding for 3 months. I opened LinkedIn and updated my status. Open to new opportunities in retention analytics and data science. Within an hour, I had 15 messages from recruiters and 3 direct offers from former clients. I didn't respond to any of them. Not yet. First, I had a show to watch. The Friday morning of the QBR arrived with the kind of tension that makes elevator rides feel like hours. Tyler strutted through the office in his new Tom Ford suit, practicing his presentation opener to anyone who'd listen. Marcus shadowed him like a proud father, occasionally offering suggestions about really selling the transformation story. I watched from my basement office as the email chains exploded. The board had received the quarterly financials from accounting at 9 a.m. Darren had made sure of that, the real financials, not Tyler's massaged version. The numbers didn't match Tyler's preview deck, not even close. By 10 a.m., panic was setting in. I could track it through the foot traffic past my door. First Marcus, practically running to accounting. Then Tyler. His confident stride reduced to a nervous shuffle. Legal got involved around 11. It was called in at 11:30, at noon. Tyler appeared in my doorway. The Tom Ford suit was wrinkled now, his perfect hair slightly disheveled. "Elena," he said, trying for casual and landing somewhere near desperate. "Quick question about the old retention models." I looked up from my computer where I was designing a particularly mindless employee satisfaction survey. "I thought they were unnecessarily complex?" "Right, yes, but..." He stepped inside, closed the door. "Some of the board members are asking about historical comparisons. I need to show continuity between your system and mine." "Continuity," I repeated, tasting the word like spoiled wine. "The numbers should align, right? I mean, we're measuring the same things, just more efficiently now." I leaned back in my chair. "Tyler, you deleted the historical data. Remember? Brad from IT mentioned it in the production logs." His face went white. I was cleaning up redundant records." "Redundant," I echoed. "Like the 43 enterprise accounts that churned while showing green on your dashboard?" The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. "You know," he said finally. "Everyone knows. Darren knows the revenue doesn't match. Julia knows we're exposed to litigation. Maya knows customers are screaming into the void. The only question is whether you're going to stand up there at 2 p.m. and continue the charade." He tried to salvage some authority. "Marcus believes in my vision. Marcus believed in your promise to make him look innovative. How's that working out now that the board has the real Q3 numbers?" Tyler's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and I saw his last hope die. "Emergency board session at 1 p.m. He read. "That's earlier than expected," I mused. "You should probably update your slides." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Did you do this?" "Do what?" "I've been planning team-building exercises, remember? Today's theme is Trust Falls. Ironic, isn't it?" After he left, I made one final preparation. I connected my laptop to the main conference room's presentation system remotely. Brad had given me the access codes months ago. Then I waited. The emergency board session was held behind closed doors, but the shouting was audible from the basement. At 1:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Julia. "They're making him present anyway. Want to watch him burn?" The all-hands QBR started at 2 p.m. sharp. 200 employees packed into the main conference room and overflow areas. The board sat in the front row like a jury that had already reached its verdict. Marcus was notably absent. Tyler took the stage. His confidence evaporated. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to present Q3 retention metrics." He clicked to his first slide. Retention revolution. 15% churn reduction. That's when I executed my final move. His slide flickered. For just a moment, long enough for everyone to see but short enough that Tyler might think it was a glitch, my slide appeared. The same title, but with real data. Retention reality, 31% churn rate, 73 meters, ARR, lost? Tyler clicked again, confused. His next slide appeared. Customer success stories. Another flicker. My version. Customer departure stories with logos and termination dates. He was sweating now, clicking frantically through his deck. But for every lie he presented, The truth ghosted across the screen just long enough to plant doubt, then certainty, then horror. Technical difficulties, Tyler stammered. Let me just continue, the CEO said from the front row, his voice carrying the kind of calm that precedes explosions. We're all very interested in these fluctuations in your data. Tyler looked at his laptop screen, then at the projection. They matched perfectly now. My ghosting had stopped. But the damage was done. 200 employees had seen the contradictions. The board had seen their worst fears confirmed. Perhaps, the CFO suggested, you could explain why Morrison Industries appears as both a success story and a terminated account. Tyler's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. That's when Marcus finally appeared, moving through the crowd like a man walking to his execution. He took the microphone from Tyler. We're going to postpone the retention presentation, he announced. There are some discrepancies we need to address. The room erupted in whispers. I closed my laptop, saved my Tale of Two Dashboards presentation, and forwarded it to the entire board with a simple subject line, the complete Q3 retention analysis, as requested. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. They all knew where it came from. The QBR ended in chaos. The board disappeared into another emergency session. Tyler vanished entirely. Security would later find him cleaning out his desk at 4 p.m. Marcus lasted until Monday before his resignation to pursue other opportunities was announced. But I wasn't there to see any of it in person. At 3 p.m., while the building burned with corporate fury, I was sitting in a coffee shop 3 blocks away, interviewing with James Morrison via video call for a chief analytics officer position at Morrison Industries. Impressive work, he said, having clearly heard about the QBR disaster already. Though I have to ask, why didn't you just report Tyler's fraud immediately? I smiled. Would you have hired me if I had? Or would you have hired the person who could see 3 moves ahead, document everything, and ensure the problem was solved permanently? He laughed. When can you start? The all-hands meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. sharp on Tuesday, 4 days after the QBR disaster. The email invitation came from the CEO himself, marked mandatory attendance, strategic realignment. Everyone knew what that meant, public execution time. I arrived 5 minutes early, choosing a seat in the 3rd row, visible enough to be seen, far enough back to observe everything. The energy in the room was electric with barely contained chaos. 200 employees whispered theories, shared screenshots, forwarded emails they probably shouldn't have had. Tyler entered at 1:58, and the room went silent like someone had died. Which, professionally speaking, someone was about to. He'd abandoned the Tom Ford suit for something humbler. Smart move, though far too late. Marcus was nowhere to be seen, his absence louder than any presence could be. The board filed in like pallbearers, taking their positions on stage with the CEO at center. Before we begin, the CEO started, his voice cutting through the tension. I want Mr. Briggs to present his Q3 retention metrics. The complete version. Tyler approached the podium like a man approaching the gallows. His laptop shook slightly as he connected it to the projection system. The first slide appeared. Retention Resilience, Q3. But something was different. The numbers on his slide were changing, live, in real time. Where it said 15% churn reduction, the number flickered to 16% increase. Where it showed Morrison Industries as successfully retained, the status updated to terminated September 3rd. Every fabrication he'd planted was being overwritten by reality, pulled directly from the production database. Tyler clicked frantically, trying to advance past the carnage, but each slide underwent the same transformation, his beautiful lies dissolving into ugly truths, one by one, in front of everyone who mattered. What's happening? He stammered into the microphone. This isn't your original presentation, the CEO finished. No, it's not. IT has been helpful enough to integrate live data feeds into your deck. We thought transparency would be educational. I glanced at Brad in the back corner. He gave me the slightest nod. He'd outdone himself. Tyler tried to speak, to explain, to justify. But the numbers kept changing. 43 enterprise accounts he'd marked as active flipped to terminated. The revenue projections collapsed from growth to catastrophic loss. His retention score algorithm displayed its actual formula, a random number generator between 85 and 95. "I can explain," Tyler finally managed. "Please do," the CEO said. "Explain how we lost $73 million in annual recurring revenue while you reported record retention. Explain how dead accounts appeared in win stories. Explain how you deleted historical data to prevent comparison." Tyler looked desperately around the room, maybe hoping for an ally, a lifeline, anything. His eyes found mine. I held his gaze, my expression neutral as a judge's. He looked away first. "It was Marcus's idea," he said finally, throwing his mentor under the bus with impressive speed. "He said we needed a new narrative for the board. He said the old system was too pessimistic, that we needed to show confidence. Mr. Lang has already submitted his resignation." The CEO cut him off. "We're not here to discuss him. We're here to discuss you." The CFO stood up, holding a folder. "Mr. Briggs, are you aware that deliberately falsifying financial metrics that are reported to investors constitutes securities fraud?" Tyler's face went from white to green. "Are you also aware," Julia added from her seat in the front row, "that 17 of our terminated clients are considering litigation for breach of service level agreements? Agreements that should have triggered automatic remediation based on the warning systems you disabled." The room was dead silent now. Tyler stood at the podium like a corpse that hadn't realized it was dead yet. "Your employment is terminated effective immediately," the CEO announced. "Security will escort you out. Legal will be in touch regarding potential criminal charges." 2 security guards materialized from the back of the room. Tyler didn't resist. He just walked, his laptop still displaying the final slide of his presentation, a stock photo of a rocket ship with the caption, "To the Moon." The rocket was crashing in real time, its trajectory adjusted by actual data to show a nosedive into the ground. After Tyler's escort parade passed, the CEO remained at the podium. "I want to be clear about something. This wasn't just one person's failure. This was systematic negligence at multiple levels. Changes are being made." He clicked to a new slide, an org chart. Several boxes were marked in red, positions being eliminated. Marcus's box was already gone. But there was a new box, highlighted in green. Chief Data Integrity Officer. "We need someone who understands both the technical complexity of retention analytics and the importance of truthful reporting," the CEO continued. "Someone who's demonstrated exceptional attention to detail and an uncompromising commitment to accuracy." He looked directly at me. "Ms. Harper, would you please join me on stage?" The room turned, 200 faces looking at me. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked to the stage with measured steps. No rush, no emotion, just precision. "Effective immediately," the CEO announced. "Elena Harper will serve as our Chief Data Integrity Officer, reporting directly to the board. Her first task will be rebuilding our retention analytics system and implementing safeguards to ensure this never happens again." The applause started slowly, then built to something genuine. Darren actually whistled. Maya was grinning. Brad gave me a subtle salute. I took the microphone, looked out at the crowd, at the empty seat where Tyler had been, at the board members who'd finally learned the cost of believing beautiful lies over complex truths. "The truth about data," I said, "is that it doesn't care about your narrative. It doesn't care about your quarterly targets or your innovation story. It simply is. And our job, my job, is to listen to what it's telling us, especially when we don't like what we hear." I paused. Let that sink in. Especially then. The building emptied out slowly after the all hands, but I remained in the conference room, staring at Tyler's abandoned laptop. His last slide was still frozen on screen. That ridiculous rocket ship. Now crater-bound thanks to Brad's live data integration. Poetic justice served in real time. I didn't take the Chief Data Integrity Officer position. The offer was generous. Double my previous salary, direct report to the board, carte blanche to rebuild everything. The CEO had even promised a team of 20 analysts and a seven-figure budget for new systems. It was everything I should have wanted. But as I stood on that stage, accepting applause for exposing the rot, I realized something. Brightscale Solutions wasn't diseased because of Tyler or Marcus. They were symptoms, not the cause. The cause was a culture that valued beautiful lies over complex truths, quick wins over sustainable growth, perception over reality. They wanted me to be their guard dog now, to catch the next Tyler before he could do damage. But there would always be another Tyler, another Marcus, another executive willing to trade tomorrow's disaster for today's bonus. So I gave them 2 weeks. 2 weeks to document everything, build safeguards, train replacements, and create a system so transparent that even the most creative accountant couldn't hide reality. I called it the Glassbox Initiative. Every metric visible, every calculation traceable, every change logged and immutable. During those 2 weeks, the investigations began. The SEC opened an inquiry. 3 law firms started circling for class action lawsuits. Tyler's LinkedIn disappeared entirely, though rumors placed him at his father's investment firm, learning what real consequences looked like. Marcus attempted a reputation rehabilitation tour, claiming he'd been misled by a rogue analyst. Nobody bought it. But the real entertainment came from the exit interviews. 17 terminated clients agreed to detailed discussions about why they left. Every single one mentioned the sudden disappearance of predictive warnings, the alerts that had saved them millions and prevented churn. My systems, gutted by Tyler's simplification. Morrison Industries alone calculated that my early warning system had saved them $4 million annually in customer retention. Elena understood that complexity isn't the enemy. James Morrison told the investigators. Hiding from it is. On my last day, I sent one final email to all staff. Subject line, the cost of simplification. Complexity in data isn't a bug, it's a feature. It reflects the messy reality of human behavior, market dynamics, and business operations. When someone promises to make it simple, ask yourself, what are they hiding? What are they choosing not to see? And what will it cost when reality refuses to stay hidden? I cleaned out my desk, both of them, the basement exile and the executive suite they'd hastily prepared. In my Echo folder, I left everything. Every piece of evidence, every analysis, every prediction that had come true. Let it stand as a monument to what happens when you silence the people who tell inconvenient truths. Brad met me at the elevator. So, Morrison Industries? Among others, I said. 3 companies had made offers. Morrison's was the most interesting, building predictive analytics from scratch, with no legacy systems or executive egos to navigate. Good, he said. This place doesn't deserve you. This place got exactly what it deserved, I corrected. A $73 million lesson in why you don't replace expertise with enthusiasm. The elevator doors opened. Julia was inside, holding a banker's box. Leaving too? I asked. Transferred to Morrison's legal team, she said with a smile. Apparently, they're building a new compliance framework, something about ensuring data integrity from day one. We rode down in comfortable silence, 2 refugees from a war we'd won but didn't want to keep fighting. In the lobby, Maya waited with champagne. To Tyler's greatest achievement, she said, raising a glass. Uniting an entire company in the shared experience of watching him crash and burn. We toasted, drank, laughed for the first time in months. As I walked out of Brightscale Solutions for the last time, my phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had shared my cost of simplification email on LinkedIn. It already had 300 reactions and climbing. The first comment was from a data analyst at another company. This is why I document everything. The second, currently watching my own Tyler destroy our reporting, sending this to my CEO. The third made me stop walking. Tyler Briggs has entered the chat. Would love to discuss how this situation has been misrepresented. I screenshotted it, added it to my Echo folder, let him try to rebuild his narrative. I had the receipts, and now, so did everyone else. 6 months later, Brightscale's stock had dropped 40%. They'd lost half their enterprise clients. The CEO had been replaced. The board had been restructured. And somewhere in a basement office, probably, another Elena was documenting another Tyler's lies, building another Echo folder, waiting for another perfect moment to let the truth detonate. Because that's how it works in corporate America. The cycles repeat, the players change, but the numbers never lie. And neither did I. I simply let everyone else's lies tell the truth. Thank you for listening to this story of corporate revenge and data justice. I'm curious, where are you listening to this story right now? At work, during your commute, or perhaps late at night when you should be sleeping? Drop a comment below and let me know. If you enjoyed this tale of receipts and retribution, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts about office politics and standing up for the truth. Have you ever had your own Tyler or Marcus? I'd love to hear your story.